Hello and welcome to a how-to video on what it looks like when I utilize the tiered feedback method to grade an assignment in one of my courses. Now what I'm going to show you is how it looks at App State, so this will be particularly applicable to those of us in the FLC that are here and might be interested in using some of the built-in capabilities in our learning management system, which is Moodle-based and which is called As You Learn. But those of you who aren't at App State can still probably benefit from watching this because you can go through and see the general steps that I do when I'm using this feedback method, and then you can think about what the analogs might be on your learning management system as you try to figure out how to apply this for your unique situation. So what I want to do is just take you through kind of how it looks from my end so that you can try to apply it yourself. So the first thing I want to show you is how you would add an assignment that would be particularly beneficial to use to grade with the feedback pyramid or the tiered feedback methodology. So what I'm going to do, this is just in a course from last semester. If you are using As You Learn and you want to try to do this the way I do it, what you're going to want to do is add an assignment. And particularly, you need to add a certain type of assignment. You're probably familiar with adding the regular assignment type, and you could do that and then just use the rubric feature, the Moodle As You Learn rubric feature, that's fine. But I particularly like the TurnItIn assignment option. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my page, and it'll ask for a name, so we'll just name it something. What I typically do here is put the name of the assignment, and then I put all the directions in this area, in the summary area. So we'll just give them something. Obviously, I give better directions than that. There's a whole bunch of settings you can fiddle with, just like you always can when you're adding a new assignment. We're not going to do too much with that there. Okay, so one thing that is beneficial if you're using TurnItIn software is, in addition to being able to grade in a pretty speedy way, you can also check for plagiarism. And that happens in the originality report section. So you might want to go through and figure out exactly what types of features you want your kind of plagiarism checker to have. One thing I like to make sure that's checked is the standard repository for storing student paper, so that if you continue to use this assignment in subsequent semesters, what this software will do is it will compare any current work to any past work, which helps to check to see if people are reusing assignments. You can also decide to check against the internet, journals, all of that kind of stuff. I just say yes, check all of that. Now in the next section, grade mark options, this is where we're going to add our rubric. Right now the default is no rubric, but we're going to want to add a rubric to it. You can see I have one rubric already built in, but you can also, if you've never done this before, you're going to need to create your own rubric. And you can do that right here where it says Launch Rubric Manager. And so what it'll do is it'll bring up a place where you can build your own rubric. But what you're going to want to do, if it doesn't come up with a blank one, is click over here in the upper left-hand corner and click on Create New Rubric. And what you can see when you open this is you can basically have as many different types of criteria as you want, and you can add criteria just by clicking this button. So if you're going to grade them on 10 different things, you know, grammar and depth of thinking and integration of sources, or whatever kinds of things you're going to grade them on, you can add as many as you want there. You can click on criterion and you can name it whatever you want, you know. Now obviously I think something more interesting than grammar would be helpful, but just adding some different things here. And then you can actually come up with a more detailed description of, you know, this is what I'm looking for here. And you can explain exactly what that would be. And so for grammar, you can have as many different levels of points as you want. So you could have 0 points, you could do 1 point, or you could do half points. Just depending on whatever you want, and you can add as many points as you want to make the assignment total up to what you're looking for. And then you can go in and you can say, okay, the lowest possible score on criterion 1 is grammar. This is what it looks like, so lots of grammar and writing style mistakes, something like that. And then you can kind of explain what the next level up would look like, a few mistakes, things like that. And so you can really build in your entire rubric here by coming up with the things that you care about grading, and then the number of points that you're going to allocate for each different level of quality within the different criteria that you care about for that particular assignment. So you can really personalize it however you want. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is show you how I actually use the rubric to score someone's work after it's already been built. So to do that, I'm going to use an actual assignment and an actual rubric that I use in my courses. So we're going to click on exam 3. This is one of the essay exams in my course. After I've built everything, this is what it looks like, and this is after the students have taken the exam. But when I open it up, you can see all of the exam instructions are at the very top of the assignment. And so you can see that I'm asking them to write an essay in their own words that's 3 paragraphs long, and that basically responds to a case study. I give the students 2 case studies to choose from, and they just have to pick one where they are basically reading about a hypothetical teacher, and they are writing what mistakes and errors this hypothetical teacher has made, and then how they would recommend the teacher should change those things to be more effective. So that's the basic assignment that they're doing here. And so if I scroll beyond that, what you can see, and all of these have been scored, but if this were something where students had just completed this assignment and you hadn't scored it yet, it would be a little more blank than this. But on the left-hand side, we've got all of the students' names. Then next to that, we have the names of the documents that they've uploaded. Then we have the time that it was submitted. Then we have a similarity score. This is the plagiarism score, and basically higher numbers mean more potential for plagiarism. And so you can see that there are some that are higher than others that I'm going to want to take particular care in looking at. What we're going to do though is we're going to scroll down to a fake student I've created somewhere in here. Let me find them. It has the word fake in it. Yep. So we're going to go in and score. So when you click the little pencil icon, it will bring up the grading center for TurnItIn. And when you open it up, it brings up, at least on my machine, a really huge version of their document. It basically uploads from Word or whatever type of document they used. It moves it for you into this thing called Feedback Studio, which is where the grading happens. The first thing I always like to do is check the plagiarism. And so if you look over here on the right-hand side, stuff in the red relates to the originality of their work. So if I click on that, you can see that there's a 4% overlap. That's pretty low, but what it will do is it will highlight in their work whatever is non-original. And you can see there's really only one thing in this student's work, because see, if I scroll through the whole thing, there's only one thing highlighted. And you can see why it looks plagiarized to the machine, because it's an actual quote. And so I see this and I say, oh, it's a quote. They said who said it. Not the best citation, but they did at least give credit to someone else. And so to me, I don't need to worry about that. But sometimes you'll find tons of things listed. The percentage will be much higher, and there'll be a whole bunch of things listed. Here you can see that they found this in a paper submitted to a different university altogether. Sometimes it'll say the exact website and things like that. But this isn't anything we need to worry about for this particular student. And so I click off of that to make that go away, so that that doesn't stay on the whole time, so it's not cluttered. The blue section is the actual grading. And so if we click on to this little set of blocks here, it will bring up the rubric. Now this is a rubric that I had already built before I ever scored this. Now this is the rubric that I built beforehand. If you want to see what the rubric actually looks like, or you need to remind yourself of what it looks like to the students, if you click on the cog right here, it brings up the full rubric. And so you can see I've gone in and added way more criteria than in the default. So my rubric is pretty long. I have personally decided to score by paragraph because in my directions I have very specific requirements about the types of content that should be in each paragraph. And so scoring by paragraph works for my assignment. It might not work for yours. You might need to grade your assignment holistically, and so it wouldn't make sense to divide it by paragraphs. It's going to be divided by qualities in the work that you're expecting to see. But for mine, in this particular essay, I have a gimme point where I ask a really, really easy question that everybody should get right. And you can see here, I've set it so that you can either get 0 points and 0 all the way up to 1 point. It's either right or it's not for that one. For a lot of the other ones, there's a lot more variety in terms of the number of points you can get. But for that one, I either want to give them 0 points or 1 point. And then whether or not they've addressed paragraph 1A correctly according to the assignment instructions. This one also, you either do it incorrectly or correctly. It's either a 0 or a 1. But then all the other categories are a little bit more detailed. So paragraph 1B, you could either get a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4 on this particular exam. And I kind of explain completely incorrect. 0 points is basically the answer was not submitted or it's just wrong. You could get a 1 point if they bring up class concepts, but they're not correctly discussed, or I can't tell whether or not they understand them. You can get 2 points, which is mostly correct, whether or not the problem they identified in this hypothetical teacher's teaching is kind of loosely connected to class concepts, all the way up to an impressive answer for part B, which would be that the problem is clearly connected to multiple well-explained concepts from class, and each class concept is thoroughly defined and is discussed with many details. So basically what I've done in this particular rubric is laid out for them exactly what different levels of work quality look like and how those different levels of work quality are attached to different amounts of points in my rubric, and it goes all the way through the paragraphs in that way. So this is basically what it looks like, and the students can see this beforehand so that as they're working on their essay, they can reference this to make sure that they are creating work that's going to line up hopefully with the 4-point column. Okay, but we don't need to see that while we're scoring. Once you get used to your rubric, you will remember what all these different things are. And you can see, if you scroll down, you basically just have this slider where you can just decide how many points the student is going to get. So, let's zoom back up to the top of this person's work. You can, by the way, if this looks too large to you, you can change using the zoom how big or small it looks. Down here in the right hand corner, that's where the zoom is. And then what I would do is I would go ahead and just start reading kind of quickly. The first thing I noticed is this person launched right into their 3 paragraphs. They did not include an answer to the gimme question. And so what I need to do is let them know that. And so when I click into their document, it gives me 3 options. This check mark references quick marks, which are things you have saved ahead of time, common things you find yourself saying all the time. The bubble is a comment if you need to type some general comment to them and you want it to look like an actual comment. And then text is if you want to start editing actually in line, if you want to say something that shows up on the paper all the time. All right. So what I need to do, though, is tell them that they forgot to address the gimme question. And I've saved that because a lot of people forget that all the time. When you click on Quick Mark, it brings up a whole bunch of things that I have saved previously. And if I scroll down, it's in alphabetical order to Forgot Gimme, and click that. And you can see this pops up, looks like you forgot to answer the gimme question. And so that is in there, and when the student gets this back and they click on it, they will see, oh, looks like you forgot to answer the gimme question, so I have to give them a 0 point. 0 points for that. Okay, and so if I keep reading through, and maybe I realize that, oh, they haven't defined something correctly here, I could have I've saved this happens all the time, so you should have defined something they didn't. Definition needed. Click on that one. And I've pre-saved that. Okay, so let's say I keep reading and I come across a fragment, not for them in their school to have the highest test scores. All right, that is not strong writing. And In this particular assignment, I actually don't score them on grammar, but a lot of college assignments we obviously do. And so if this were something where I was scoring on grammar and punctuation and style, I could highlight this, click the quick mark, and if you click the blue bar at the top, you can see there are other sets other than ones that you created. So there are punctuation ones, common issues with hyphenation, or you're missing a comma, or you have a comma and you shouldn't have a comma, that kind of thing. We also have common composition issues like fragments. This is a fragment. So if I click on fragment, there's this entire thing. I didn't write this. This is already built in. All of the grammar and writing style stuff is built in. And you can see it defines a fragment and it gives an example of a fragment and how to fix it. So that's pretty nice. Other things that are in the quick mark set that could be helpful, if there's certain format things that you need, like if you have an improper citation, which we had that one we saw, or a citation is needed, or you've got capitalization errors, all that stuff is built in. So that's kind of nice. Now let's say I'm reading along and I see something that a lot of people seem to me getting incorrect, and I need to do something to help with that. So let's say a lot of people say this and it's wrong. What I've created completely outside of this grading system is just a document, a Word doc or a Google Docs document, where I have listed common errors. And I've even divided it by kind of topics that people are talking about. Okay, so let's say the common issue that I'm seeing is a lot of people are misunderstanding what rote memorization means. And I had typed that into this document in the past when I was grading. So a lot of times if I type an original comment, then I'll save it in this document just in case I have to use it again. And then I can come over here and highlight it and copy it, bring it in here, and then I can make a new comment, the comment bubble, which just brings up a comment bubble, and I can paste it, Control V, and paste it in there, so that now the student, when they're coming back and they're reading their paper, they see this comment bubble, they click on it, they get this very personalized, specific piece of information that I didn't need to create because I created it in the past when I was grading another time, and then I just cut and paste and drop it in. The other thing is, if I find myself doing this a lot, having to cut and paste from a grading guide a lot, then what I can do is convert this into a quick mark. And so you create a comment bubble, and then you put whatever you're going to say in there, and then you say convert to quick mark, and then you just give it a title, like rote memorization would be this one, and then you decide where to put it. You could create your own sets, something like that. But if the comment is something you don't feel like you're going to be saying a lot, or it truly is unique to this student's work, then you just leave it as a comment, like that. And you can go through and score in that way. And then you can also actually allocate points just by clicking through here. You can see as I click on these things, the definition that goes along with the number of points is showing up down here in the bottom of the screen, exactly what that level of scoring means for them. And you just go all the way through, score the whole thing, whatever it is, as you're reading. And then you have their grade here. Now you do have to remember to click apply to grade, because until the number is showing up here, it's not actually going into your grade book. It's just showing here. So you say apply to grade. Once you see it up there, you're good, and you can go on to the next person's score. So this right here is level 1 feedback for me. As you can see, you can get completely carried away with the quick marks, with the comments, all of that kind of stuff. So I try to mostly utilize the rubric, which is pretty detailed and has a lot of information, for level 1. Because remember, I'm grading about 100 of these, and so if I were to go through and kind of annotate, that would take a really long time. So I try to mostly just do rubric and easy clicking quick marks for level 1. Level 2, and remember level 2 is if somebody requests they need more feedback, looking at the rubric, looking at whatever quick marks or whatever I've given them aren't enough. Once they ask for that, then all I do is I come back to the same exact spot. Of course, it's after the exam's finished, after they've already received their level 1 grade and feedback. I just come right back on in here, and then I just go kind of line by line, and I might add in, more unique comments for them, that kind of thing, so that by the time everything's done, they've got tons and tons of stuff where the whole thing is highlighted and they've got way more comments. And then I tell them to just go back in and read all the new comments they have. So for me, that really is the difference between level 1 and level 2. Level 1, again, is using the rubric and quick mark, stuff I've already saved. And then level 2 is a lot of unique comments and a lot more detailed comments. And that's basically all I do. Then after that, if they still feel like they're lost, then I bring them into my office for that level 3 feedback, which is really just us kind of talking through their process of how they wrote the thing or created the project or whatever it is, and me giving them tips on how to do a better job next time. And so as I said, I give 100% of people level 1, and then whoever requests level 2, it's usually no more than 20 students, it's oftentimes less than that, and then whoever requests level 3 after they get the level 2, which is usually 1 or 2 students. And that really does help to decrease the level of work that I have to do. Now, obviously, it takes time for you to build up your quick marks. It takes time for you to build up your grading guide. So the very first time that I did this, it wasn't a huge time saver. But every single time I use it again, I use the assignment again, I use the grading guide again, it gets faster and faster because I'm creating way less new content, way less new information in the grading guide and less quick marks because it's already in there from past semesters. So that is how I do the tiered feedback system in As You Learn in our Moodle system using TurnItIn. Thanks!